Jacob Kirkegaard. He's a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics here in Washington. Let me ask you the same question I asked our reporter, Dan Williams. Jacob, talk to us about the ramifications here from a political front as well as economic front.
Well, I think on the political side, it appears increasingly likely, as was mentioned, that the Catalan government will unilaterally declare independence in the coming days. That is a declaration of independence that obviously will be rejected by the Spanish government, but equally important, will be rejected by the rest of the European Union governments, in my opinion. So it is essentially an exercise in futility, in my opinion. And it's really just a sort of a strategy of escalation that the nationalist government has been pursuing for quite some time. So the real question politically is this the moment in which the Spanish government suspends home rule? And if it does it then proceed further, dismiss the current government and calls new elections? And then, crucially, if it calls new elections, does it then offer an alternative political route, namely one of negotiations, a possible new constitutional settlement between Spain and Catalonia on fiscal matters and the like? Because if they don't, and to date, Prime Minister Rajoy has not been willing to do so, I fear that new elections in Catalonia would just see an increase in support for the separatists.
And Catalonia, we should mention, is one of Spain's wealthiest, most productive regions of Spain. How much has that perhaps stirred the quest for independence here?
Oh, but there's no doubt that the belief among many Catalans that we are the sort of breadwinner, the treasury chamber, and we support economically the rest of Spain has been a driving force behind this. But the reality is that just because you are relatively rich, a region of Spain, doesn't mean that you will be well off being independent from Spain, and certainly not being independent of Spain if you're not have any real prospects of being a member of the EU. So there's a lot of misconception here about that in Catalonia, in my opinion, but there's no doubt that it played a large role.
And if there are no elections, if Spain doesn't call for new elections, where do you see this going? Is there any room for dialogue, any room for compromise?
I think there's plenty of room for dialogue. I think it's very clear from this event, this so-called vote on last week on Sunday, that a majority of the Catalan population probably is not even interested in independence. They would much rather have a new negotiated settlement with the rest of Spain, something that was actually negotiated earlier in this millennium, but was then ultimately annulled by the Spanish Constitutional Court. So I think there's plenty of room for that. And it's really, to some extent, up to the Spanish government, in my opinion, to initiate such a process. But I would also say that if there is no opening gambit by Prime Minister Rajoy, I foresee a scenario in which the nationalists will ultimately be unable to achieve independence, but they will be able to make the status quo in Catalonia increasingly expensive for everyone by holding sort of civil disobedience, ongoing general strikes, the prospect always, of course, for renewed street clashes and the like. And this could ultimately spill over into the national Spanish economy and, as we've already seen, lead to substantial market corrections.
A very volatile and complicated situation unfolding. Thank you so much, Jacob Kirkegaard. We appreciate it.